effectively merge.
Benign AI scenario, we will be left behind. With a high bandwidth brain-machine interface, I think we can actually go along for the ride. And we can effectively have the option of merging with AI.
This is Pager. He's a 9-year-old macaque who had a Neuralink placed in each side of his brain about 6 weeks ago.
This video from Neuralink explains what the company says it can do. So you see that monkey's right hand controlling the joystick. That joystick moves the cursor on the screen. So every time Pager the monkey moves it to the correct spot, banana smoothie comes shooting out of that metal straw. The brain implants are measuring how Pager's neurons are firing.
As he's playing this game, we're wirelessly streaming, in real time, the firing rates from thousands of neurons to a computer. After only a few minutes of calibration, we can use the output from the decoder to move the cursor instead of the joystick. Pager still moves the joystick out of habit, but as you can see, it's unplugged. He's controlling the cursor entirely with decoded neural activity.
Dial in front of its face. When the monkey thought in such a way that fired that particular neuron, the dial moved, and you get a banana-flavored pellet. Eventually, he became better and better at thinking in just the right way to get the dial to move.
He's not using a mouse or a joystick, rather he's thinking of where to move the paddle.
She reached out with the robotic arm, she thought about the use of her own hand, she picked up that thermos of coffee, brought it close to her, tilted it towards herself, and sipped coffee from a straw.
We also or even replay old memories.
Version 10, Neuralink, whatever, far in the future, you could recall everything, just like it's a movie.
Crystal clear.
Including all the entire sensory experience.
Emotions,
Everything.
Everything.
And play it back.
This is Nolan Arba, the first human being to receive Elon Musk's Neuralink brain implant. Let's talk about how Neuralink technology has already begun to change the world. Out for the past 2 months, finally got the opportunity to tell his own story. Nolan is 29 years old and has spent the past 8 years living as a quadriplegic after a diving accident dislocated his C4 and C5 vertebrae. These are bones kind of right in the middle of the neck, halfway between your collarbone and the base of your skull. As a result, Nolan has no sensation or control of his body from his shoulders down, but that hasn't stopped him from remaining incredibly positive about his life, and now thanks to Neuralink, it isn't stopping him from playing video games either. Nolan currently has Neuralink's N1 brain computer interface chip implanted underneath his scalp and sitting flush with the bone of his skull. Underneath that chip are 64 tiny wires that have been placed into the surface of his brain about 2 millimeters in depth and specifically targeting the motor cortex region. This device allows Nolan's brainwaves to be translated into digital command prompts. So the first demonstration that we get is seeing Nolan play a game of virtual chess, and it's indistinguishable from a person using a computer mouse. Nolan hits pause on the background music, he moves the cursor around the screen quickly and smoothly in a way that seems effortless. Now he is using a Bluetooth signal that transmits from a small computer chip in his skull directly to his device. Nolan explains the process of learning to use his Neuralink, and this was a learning experience for everyone because the engineers who have been developing this product for nearly a decade have never been able to hear feedback on what it's like to actually use their spine is broken. The neural pathways associated with movement are still intact and can be used as triggers for device control. Then there's imagined movement, and according to Nolan, this quickly became the most intuitive way to use his Neuralink ability. All he has to do is imagine the cursor moving, like using the force to move an object. He just looks at the area on the screen and the cursor goes where he wants it to. And you can tell how effortless this is because as Nolan is talking to his Neuralink engineer and to the camera, he is also continuing to play chess at the same time. So he can already multitask between physical activity and Neuralink activity. And Nolan has only had his implant since January 28th. Obviously, the tech side of things allows him to work and play while laying down in his bed where he can stay unattended for hours at a time. This gives him back a level of independence that, as far as the downsides to his procedure, Nolan says that the biggest limitation is dealing with battery life. As we expected, the Neuralink chip can run for 8 hours on a single charge. Then Nolan says that he has to wait for the device to recharge until he can use it again. Now, we know that Neuralink isn't letting patients use the device and charge it at the same time, and that makes sense. They don't want to risk the implant getting too hot. They probably aren't using fast charging either for the same reason. As far as the implant procedure is concerned, again, Nolan was very positive about his experience. He says that the surgery was super easy, and he was released from hospital later on the same day. He also mentioned that he has not experienced the last. For all we know, there could be more people like him already. In September last year, Neuralink announced that they had started recruiting for the first human test subjects for the N1 brain-computer interface and R1 surgical robot that will be used to implant it. The PRIME study, short for Precise Robotically Implanted Brain-Computer Interface, aims to, above all, determine the safety of both the implant and the robot for human application. It will also assess the initial functionality of the N1 in enabling people with paralysis to control external devices with their thoughts. It's in Neuralink performed a total of 155 surgeries on sheep, pigs, and monkeys. In 2022, that number grew to 294 total surgeries. In a typical FDA human trial, the medical company would be limited to just one human experiment in the first year, with a long cooldown period to assess the in 2024. The plan right now for Neuralink is to perform 11 human implants in 2024. That will increase to another 27 implants in 2025 and 79 in 2026. If all goes well, after this point, operations at Neuralink will begin to truly ramp up. The company anticipates 499 surgeries in 2027 and then exponential growth into 2030 when they are performing 22,204 surgeries in that year. Yes, 22,000. That was not a typo, but it is a very ambitious goal. Let's take a minute to consider the results that we've seen so far and talk about there are only a small few devices that can accomplish this, and Neuralink has become one of them. Neuralink is also an exceptionally invasive procedure. This is a big deal. There is literally a hole in the patient's head and a computer underneath their skin. It shouldn't be lost on anyone that patients like Nolan are taking an incredible risk. He's a remarkably upbeat and positive person, but he's also very brave because he'll also be the first to experience the long-term effects of the procedure, whatever they might be. This is a known unknown. But the reason he's doing this, or anyone in the initial study is doing this, is because the potential upside is worth the best they will ever accomplish, which is still amazing and perfectly valid, but due to the invasive nature of the implant and the level of engineering and innovation that we've already seen from Neuralink, we know that Neuralink has the potential to do things that have never been done before. Restore eyesight to the blind, return physical movement to the paralyzed, reverse degenerative brain disease. We don't actually know what the upper limit of